TheTexasDeacon here. Thank you for joining me. Before we get into today's lesson, I have something to share with you. On Saturday, May 26th, in Dallas, Texas, at Fair Park Baptist Fellowship Church, on 1321, 1321, Rowan, R-O-W-A-N, in Dallas at 752-230. We are having the Constitutional Elections Summit. Everyone is welcome. Sorry, I don't have the ability to put this up there where you can see it, but I'm going to have to give you the information. You can get it at icareabouttheconstitution.com or constitutionalsummit@gmail.com, or you can give a phone call to Erin Davis at 214-632-6340. Now, we're going to have some very important speakers there. Some of these people are really just names to me that I've heard. Stephen Broden, who became nationally famous when he ran against Eddie Bernice Johnson, although he lost. He is going to be the master of ceremonies. Guest speakers are going to be Alfred Adask, A-D-A-S-K, Pastor Wiley S. Drake, Pastor Carl Gallops, Dr. Orly Tapes, Mickey Booth, and last but not least, my favorite, Pastor James David Manning of Outland, New York City, Harlem. I've known the man now a couple of years. Great man. Clive Doyle of the Branch Davidians may or may not be there as a guest speaker. It's beginning to look like he's not going to be able to make it, but anyway, keep him in your prayers and maybe he can show up. Let's see where we are here now. The title of today's lesson is 501c3 Churches, and the scripture is Mark 12:17. And Jesus answered and said to them, Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And they marveled at him. Seems like today, the government wants a whole lot more than their share. On these 501c3 churches, that's the regulation that gives them their tax-free status. I just went online to a couple of websites I found and got you can get tons of information. This comes from Church Compliance and Ministry Empowerment Conference, IRS tax laws. Recent court rulings make a church without 501c3 a bad deal for church members. U.S. District Court ruled that members of a church without 501c3 status cannot get the deduction for their contributions. From another, do churches need 501c3 status, was this one. On radio interviews, Kershaw said mainline churches didn't begin to incorporate until the early 20th century. The Methodist Church was the first denomination to do so. He said, on the advice of steel magnate and philanthropist Andrew Carnegie, who stressed the efficiency benefit of organizing the denomination like a business. Most of the major denominations followed suit shortly afterwards, Kershaw said. This is a controversial claim. the civil rights movement of the 60s, whose best-known leader, Martin Luther King Jr., was an ordained minister with a church, enjoyed many supports from other churches. Today, evangelists, Christians overwhelmingly vote Republican, and the ensuing American culture and policy, influencing American culture and policy. Nor should we ignore, for example, many Catholic bishops in 2004 withholding communion from politicians who have voted to support abortions and homosexual marriages. Read that again. Nor should we ignore, for example, of many Roman Catholic bishops in 2004 withholding communion from politicians who have voted to support abortions and homosexual marriages. If the bishops were at all deterred by the potential threat from the IRS, they did not show it. Thank God for somebody that can stand up to the government. Recent legislation has put churches and nonprofit organizations under a more watchful eye of the IRS. Empowered by the ability to access heavy fines and levies, the IRS is secretly cracking down on churches and ministries. The IRS code contains over 270 sections that pertain to the churches. Some are trivial, while others could cost you big if you do not follow the law exactly. Section 4958 was passed by Congress to give the IRS the power to levy harsh penalties, and violating it could cost your church, your board members, and your trustees individually, and even your church members. Sounds scary? It is. I had another sheet here a while ago. What did I do with it? Ah, here it is. Does that scare you? It should. What happened to separation of church and state? It seems that the government wants to keep the church out of the state or out of the government, while it wants to control the churches, all churches. I'm a big believer in home churches. No government controls. You do what you want to. And when a home church grows so big, it has to become a 501c3 church under our system. Well, it doesn't actually have to. But under 501c3, the government has its foot in the door to control all churches. And they can change the law, change the regulation at will. And those regulations have the same authority as a law. I'm going to leave you with one last thought. Fear the government that fears the Bible. Excuse me. May God continue to bless America. May God continue to bless the Republic of Texas. And may God continue to bless you and yours.